North, and we are going to be seeing some snow across the hills excuse me, in the Pennines. And if we take a look at the temperatures today, you'll see getting much colder as we head towards the weekend. More details in 20 minutes. Kate.
Andrea, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Now the top story this morning, and detectives investigating the gruesome double murder of two women in North London.
Team of specialist police officers. He'd come here to the world famous Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital looking for medication. Interestingly enough, 2 days ago on New Year's Day, he spent 4 hours at another hospital in central London, again looking for medication for his condition diabetes. He was actually an outpatient at that hospital, and he gave his correct name, and this all happened just hours after police had named him and had issued his photograph, but somehow staff there just didn't make the connection. Now that might be because Anthony John Hardy looked a bit different from the picture that had been issued by police. If we see the pictures from the CCTV footage, it shows that his distinctive beard and his long hair had gone. Perhaps it was in a baseball cap. Police thought they'd arrested Hardy earlier yesterday when an off-duty police officer in Greenwich spotted a man who he thought looked like him, but as we know, that turned out to be a case of mistaken identity.
Have police given any indication as to what might happen now?
Well, we understand that Hardy is being held at a police station in North London where he will be questioned about the gruesome discovery. Forensic teams are still at his flat in Camden in North London, and they will be searching for any form of evidence and any link that will help them understand exactly what happened.
Yeah, and talking about the continuing investigation, I understand the police have concerns for a third woman.
They do. I mean, we know from the gruesome discoveries in the black bin bags that they were the remains of two women. Some of their limbs are still missing, so they'll be looking for those. But police had said all day yesterday that they were concerned about a woman called Kelly Ann Nichol. She's 24 years old. She's from Falkirk in Scotland. She was last seen outside a shop on Camden High Street with Anthony Hardy. She was reported missing. Now, what's good is that there have been 2 sightings of her since. The last of those was just yesterday. But police want her to come forward. They want to hear from her. They want to know that she's all right. Back to you.
Deborah, thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Shortly after 6 o'clock this Friday morning, here's Jackie at the news desk.
Thanks, Andrew. Good morning. Good morning. Experts are warning this morning there could be severe flooding until March. The Environment Agency says saturated ground and the high water table may mean months of misery for homeowners. Richard Gatesford is in one of the worst affected areas for us this morning. Good morning, Richard. Has there been any improvement there overnight?
Well, we had hoped that the levels of water here at Shipton Bellinger in Hampshire, just on Salisbury Plain, were going to fall quite considerably overnight. That hasn't happened, Jackie, and water is still flooding right off the fields, down the roads, straight here into the centre of the village. And it really is a pretty bleak picture, especially if this report is going to be correct, that things aren't going to get any better until the spring. When you look at the fields, you can see that there is really a problem there, that there's no water being soaked up whatsoever, and everything is just flooding straight off of them into the roads. Dikes and drains and everything else full up, rivers full to bursting, and it really is a pretty bad picture. And it means that people who live in cottages like this is a 400-year-old cottage, are just going to be fighting this. At the moment, they're constantly pumping, trying to keep the water out. There was 15 inches of water in there before they started pumping, and it really is a nasty situation.
So that's Hampshire looking fairly grim. How's the rest of the country?
Well, we've currently got 132 flood watches and warnings right across the country, including 2 severe warnings. Now, these severe warnings have changed overnight. Let me give you the latest. It's the River Flit in East Anglia and also Chertsey in Surrey. That's where people should be most worried, but right across the country people should really look at this and work out whether they are close to a flood zone. Anglia, there are 44 alerts across that area. In the Midlands, 27. The northeast has 8 currently. The south, 21, in the southwest 13, and Thames 19. And the Environmental Agency is saying that really this is all down to very unusual rain, believe it or not. Persistent and heavy, they're saying. And at the moment, although we do have a respite of a couple of days where the rain is going to go away and it's going to get a bit colder, it could be coming back, and not good news for anyone involved with this.
Certainly not. Thanks, Richard, very much for now. 2 prison officers have been hurt by inmates during a standoff at a maximum security jail in Scotland. HM Shotts Prison in Lanarkshire houses 500 long-term prisoners. Police, fire crews and ambulances are still at the scene this morning. Ellie Barker reports.
The two officers were hurt when fighting broke out between two sections of inmates at the maximum security jail. Home to around 500 prisoners, it's believed at least 50 were involved in the disturbance, which began at around 8 o'clock last night. The Scottish Prison Service say it's too early to know just why the protest began. This prison is no stranger to trouble. Just a few months ago, there were other disturbances here. The Scottish Prison Service were unavailable for interview, but they say this morning this jail remains secure. Ellie Barker, GMTV News, Lanarkshire.
A Turkish barman who had a relationship with a teenage girl from Wrexham could be sent to prison for 7 years. Mehmet Osak has been charged with rape after police found him with Rachel Lloyd. The 14-year-old sparked a manhunt when she ran away from home and later phoned her family to say she'd married the barman and wouldn't be coming back. Community leaders in Birmingham are urging people to come forward with information this morning after two teenage girls were shot and killed at a party. Two other girls are still in hospital with gunshot injuries. Well, our correspondent Alan Fisher joins me now from the scene of the killings. Good morning, Alan. Any developments in the murder hunt overnight?
Morning, Jackie. Well, overnight armed police, and a large number of them have been on the streets of Birmingham. That's to give the local community reassurance that they're on top of the situation here, that they're in charge of the city. As you can see, the scene behind me remains sealed off, the row of shops where the shooting took place 26 hours ago. Now, the forensic teams, ballistic teams, they have been all over the area in the last 24 hours looking for clues, looking for bullets, looking for fragments of bullets, and they'll be back again within the next few hours conducting more searches, and they will also move on to speaking to some of the people at the party. That, as far as the police are concerned, is the key, that people who were there may well have seen something. They accept that because of exactly what happened, many people are still in trauma, still in shock, but they believe that they hold the vital evidence that the police need. They also understand too that because it's gun crime, because it was so brutal, that they might be scared to come forward, but they make the point that two families are grieving this morning because their daughters are dead. Two other girls are in hospital, seriously injured. People have to come forward and have to speak. Meanwhile, the local community leaders are also saying too that this situation has got to stop. There has been an increase in gun crime in Birmingham, as there has been in many places across the country over the last few years, and the community leaders are saying that people must come forward, give the police the information they need to try and catch the people who killed these two girls.
Alan Fisher, thank you very much. New doctors and nurses joining the NHS will have to take an HIV test, the government has announced. It comes on top of the current tests for hepatitis B and C for workers exposed to a high risk of injury, such as surgeons. The HIV virus, which can lead to full-blown AIDS, is transmitted through blood. The pop group Liberty X have played a special concert for British armed forces serving in Bosnia over the new year. The 5 band members got the chance to examine machine guns, tanks and helicopters before performing. The group went down a storm with servicemen, many of whom took the chance to dance on stage. Finally, it can be pretty frustrating missing out on last orders at your local pub, can't it? So one man from Oxfordshire managed to express his annoyance rather effectively. Furious Robert Tyrrell demolished his own pub with a 10-ton digger after staff refused to serve him a drink because they wanted to close up. It'll cost £50,000 to rebuild the historic North Star, a Grade 2 listed building. One hangover that won't be solved with an aspirin. It's 6:10. I'll be back at 6:30. Now back to Kate and Andrew.
Thank you very much. That guy has a bad attitude.
He's not good, is it?
He's easy now. OK, let's have a look at the papers this morning. The Independent this morning. Insurer refuses to cover Al-Qaeda attacks, it says, and this is the Norwich Union. They sent out their renewals, and they're not going to cover biological, dirty nuclear attacks and chemical attacks as well. And actually, they said, surprised more firms do not do this. When did insurance mean insurance? So that's the lead story there. In the Times this morning, 5 years for gun-toting as girls die in a hail of bullets, and possible amendment to the criminal justice bill by David Blunkett in the next few days. He might be tabling that one. It's not in response to Birmingham, but I mean, it is sort of relevant to them, of course. A fifth of GPs want to quit, say The Guardian. That's in the next 5 years. We did that story yesterday. They go into quite a lot of details, and quite a dramatic picture on the front of the Daily Telegraph. A simple picture, just the gun casings outside the hairdressing salon where those 2 girls died. More on that later in our programme.
Yes, we're talking about that a lot later on in the news. And Daily Mail, as of many of the tabloids, actually lead on this story. The arrest of Anthony Hardy. Ripper case suspect is hell is the front page of the Mail. The Mirror has captured. The Sun has Ripper arrest, so looking at that on all the front page. Daily Express is a different story, though. This is a possible disappearance of your red post box. Royal Mail, of course, suffering problems. £1.5 million a day is what they're losing. And it's, of course, it's not just the nostalgia of losing the red post boxes, but it could mean that there's less access to posting your letters for people in rural areas. So already a campaign to stop that happening.
Yeah, either that or pick one up now.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
Become worth a fortune,
Oh,
won't
exactly.
it? A feature, yeah. I was thinking, I hope you're not encouraging people to steal red post boxes, but you're not, are you? You're meaning get them at auction.
Good luck carrying it if you
Yes,
do.
exactly.
Sport now at 12 minutes past 6, and Scotland's top players are waking up this morning knowing they can put their feet up for the next 3 weeks or something like that. The winter break, brought in because so many games were affected by the weather, has the added benefit of keeping the players fresh physically and mentally. They probably feel like they need it after yesterday's matches. Here with me is the former Celtic star, Paul Elliott. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
What's all this about a break-up in Scotland?
I know.
It's very nice.
Well, yeah, it's good for the top players, isn't it? It gives them a chance to rest after such a long season. But more importantly, it's really because the adverse climate notoriously this time of year. So, you know, they're getting the benefits of that. And it's unfortunate that that's not really been applicable down here in the Premiership.
I mean, when you think about what sort of Alex Ferguson was saying and Sven-Göran Eriksson about in the World Cup, if our players had gone in fresh, well, Beckham perhaps wouldn't have had his broken foot or whatever. You know, all of these things do tend to happen. Injuries, illnesses, when you're fatigued. Is it a good idea to have a break?
Andrew, it's a logical explanation, isn't it? And if you think probably in this country, you could look at the big leagues, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, they all have a break at some stage within for 2 weeks over the new year. And they certainly feel the benefits, but the difference is also they've got 18 teams in their #1 leagues. We've got 20 in the Premiership. So logistically, it doesn't seem right, although I've always been a firm advocate of having the break.
Do a little bit of football action. Celtic versus Aberdeen.
Yes.
It's almost, if Celtic don't win, they know they're going to drop points to, or they're going to drop behind Rangers, don't they?
And they had a gilt-edged opportunity, didn't they? I mean, Larson scored his 30th goal. They're local from their FAs.
Yes.
And the SFA, I don't think they would, because obviously the potential implications to Scottish football and all the other political ones too.
Let's pop over to Edinburgh. Massive match yesterday.
Phenomenal.
What was that all about?
Pulsating.
Was it 4-2 to Hibs?
At one point, well, no, it was 4-4 in the end.
Yeah, 4-4 in the end, but 4-2 to Hibs, and then and Bobby Williamson, the Hibs manager, has never beaten. You know.
Exactly.
I mean, that's going to kill him, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's it rather well.
You can tell what's happening with the camera there. That there's, you know, there's a great atmosphere up there, but now a bit of a break, so that's a good thing. Huh? How about you? Do you have a good Christmas? Could you?
Nice and peaceful.
Very good. You look serene this morning, Paul. Thank you very much
Cheers.
indeed.
We're going to take a quick break now, but still lots to come on the news out this morning. We're going to be chilling out with Penny as she takes her through her new yoga routines. My goodness, that is almost painful.
Yeah, some people just do it on a ball. She uses him. That's a good idea.
Yes.
And we're going to meet a mother and dad whose swift action helped save their daughter's life, thank goodness. She was struck down by meningitis. The number of cases doubles at this time of year, and a very familiar face is helping fight the killer disease.
30 seconds to tell you about meningitis and septicemia. Not much time. But with these diseases, speed is everything. The most obvious symptom is a rash that's still visible when pressed with a glass tumbler.
Hello again, welcome back. Now you're watching the news hour on GMTV. In the morning headlines you're waking up to are that police are questioning a man in connection with the gruesome murders of 2 women in North London. There are growing concerns this morning for the safety of a third missing woman.
132 flood warnings remain around the country this morning. Homes in the Midlands and the South East have suffered the worst of the flooding.
And 2 prison officers have been hurt by inmates during a standoff at a maximum security jail in Scotland. The Shotts prison in Lanarkshire houses 500 long-term prisoners. 18 minutes past 6 now. It's the time of year that the number of cases of meningitis doubles. Today, a major awareness campaign is being launched by the Meningitis Research Foundation. In a moment, we're going to be talking to the mum and dad of one little girl, Lucy, who's with us as well, whose life was saved by her parents' quick thinking when she was struck down by the terrible disease. But first, here's our very own Dr. Hillary, who's supporting the campaign.
30 seconds to tell you about meningitis and septicemia. Not much time. But with these diseases, speed is everything. The most obvious symptom is a rash that's still visible when pressed with a glass tumbler. But there's not always a rash, so look out for these other symptoms. For more information and a leaflet about the symptoms, call Meningitis Research Foundation's free phone 24-hour helpline 080 88 00 3344. I'm about to run out of time. Make sure you don't.
Well, watching that with me is one family know only too well the importance of recognising the symptoms of meningitis as soon as possible. The juror's family, Lucy, here, there she is, looking at herself on TV. Yeah, you look lovely. You look absolutely lovely. Now, she developed gosh, I can never say this word, meningococcal septicemia in April last year. But thanks to her mum and dad's quick thinking, she survived. Thank goodness. Good that we've got Lucy with us, isn't it? And she looks fine this morning. But it was you, Andrew, wasn't it, that first noticed?
Yeah, I first noticed it. It was early in the morning. She asked for a drink of milk, and I went into the bedroom, and we noticed just a little mark on her leg. That's all it was. I mean,
could have been anything, I guess.
Could have been anything. She didn't look well, not particularly well. Little mark. Then we started to realise it could be that, because people say it's a rash, but it looked more like a small bruise.
Right.
But very deep purple bruise.
Now, were you aware of the problems of meningococcal septicemia? I mean, is it something that you were aware of anyway?
I thought...
Not. You hear little bits, what you do see, you know, on the TV or things like that, but we wasn't really aware on how quick that it really does happen.
I mean, that was the frightening thing. At what point did you think, my goodness, we need to get an ambulance in here, we need to get some help?
I think straight away. I mean, as soon as Emma brought her downstairs, I thought, right, we're going to have to, as soon as she brought her downstairs, 999, straight away. The ambulance came within 5 minutes. She was in hospital within 20 minutes. Within 20 minutes...
she was covered, head to toe.
Frightening, isn't it?
With the rash.
Yeah. So fast, yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah. It were amazing how something can take over so quickly of a little body.
Yeah. The body was shutting down, basically. I think what happens, the body shuts down, the septicemia sets in, and it's just straight away they've got to be there with the antibiotics, and that's what saved her life. Time.
Yeah,
it's all about time.
What did the staff say to the hospital? I imagine they were pleased that you took the action that you did so quickly.
They were, but strangely enough, after 48 hours, she was actually still coming out in the rash. So she had a secondary antibiotic backing her up.
Right.
And it was at that point that they told us that if it had been another half an hour, then she wouldn't be here today.
My goodness, it's that tight.
Well,
yeah.
She is. And there she is.
And here she is, and she's doing very well. Are you feeling well now, Lucy? You're not feeling well?
No.
Is that because we've got you up quite early?
No, because I got tired.
You're tired? Oh, I know how you feel, Lucy.
Very tired.
Oh, I know. We get you're very late, but you look much brighter and fresher than I do, so you're doing better than I am. I mean, she's obviously feeling well, and fortunately doesn't remember too much about the whole experience, which is good, I hope.
Yeah, she still remembers bits. I mean, because obviously, like another thing with the disease, it can eat away at the muscles, the tissue. A lot of people don't realise that. I mean, she's still got a mark on the leg, scars on the legs. Right. And it can be a very progressive disease. It's time, as Dr. Hillary says, it's time. As soon as you know something, as well, maybe not straight to the doctor, because even doctors can't diagnose it.
Parental instinct plays a small part as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Definitely.
You trusted yourself, didn't you?
I found after speaking to my own GP when he came out to see her when we was released from hospital, I said I felt that everything that I'd learned as a mother, I felt as if it had all just gone out of the window. And he says, well, no, he says, because it's that saved her.
It's that instinct.
It's that instinct.
And it's knowing your own child, I guess.
That's right.
Just knowing that something seriously is wrong with it. I mean, we do have this new awareness campaign coming out. I mean, what would your message be to parents, do you think? What should they take away?
I think message to parents is really... the first thing, if you notice any signs, because obviously the stiff neck, the frightened of bright lights, the rash, cold symptoms, because they all come in different, they don't all come in the same order. No. It can happen at different times. If you think it's that, with your instinct, 999, get the ambulance
Don't be
straight
afraid
away.
of being
No.
overreacting.
No.
Sometimes you're afraid as a parent, aren't you, to think, oh, I don't want to be seen to be the
you can
fussy mother or
sometimes, yeah.
father. But
That's
no,
right.
good.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
Andrew, Emma, congratulations. You did the right action, and Lucy's here because of that, and looking very well. So thanks very much for coming and telling us your
Thank
story.
you.
Thank
you.
Yeah, you can find that free phone number, along with more ways to recognise the signs and symptoms of meningitis. There it is, the Meningitis Research Foundation, on the GMTV website. It's gm.tv, so we've got all the information there.
24 minutes past 6 is the time. You're watching the news hour here on GMTV. We're going to unwind for a moment, relax, chill out, with none other than our very own Penny Smith. She's been hard at work, if you can call it that, with Howard Napper on the island of Mallorca with more yoga in the sun.
Yeah, next week you'll all have the chance to roll off those Christmas pounds by following Penny and Howard's latest yoga routines. It's not just losing weight, is it? It's a whole kind of posture and feeling good about yourself.
Look what it
really
does for Penny.
Well, exactly.
So serene.
It's amazing.
Oh, is she?
She's 92, you know. If you can't wait, here's a little taster. I'm obviously joking.
Can't see my stomach like this, can you?
I can only see the back of your head at this point. I didn't realise you'd bend over backwards for me, Penny.
I also think I look much better upside down. This is called the massage table.
Massage table, yeah.
It's exactly what it is.
Exhalation. Good.
Oh, I think I felt a bone crack.
How'd that feel?
Lovely, lovely. I wished I hadn't eaten that piece of fried bread.
So should we go for a little walk around the pool? Well, better come back up, okay.
It was great, but that's one you can aspire to, you see, later on.
Great, well done.
Thank you.
Good.
That looks fantastic.
No, I'd like to be doing that now. As a
Yes,
matter of fact.
absolutely. Brilliant. Still to come, we have details on the cult. Do you remember we talked about this earlier on, which claims to have cloned a human being? It says that a second clone baby will be born here in Europe within days, but they are still failing to provide any hard evidence about the first one.
Yes.
So we have the latest from New York at 10 to 7.
Raelians won't go away, will they? 6:26 is the time. Here's Andrew with the weather outlook.
Winter's here. Quaker Oats, the original winter warmer.
Hello there, good morning. Still problems with wet weather, I'm afraid. There are 130 flood warnings around the country and 2 severe flood warnings. If you are concerned, that's the number that you need to call. But it's a different problem further north. If we take a look, this is what we've got in store. Very, very icy conditions across the northern half of England and into Scotland this morning. And if we take our fly through, there you can see bits and pieces of, well, breaks in the cloud. As we zip underneath, you can see it's still this central swathe of the country that's in this grip of the rain that we've been seeing over the past 24 hours or so. Again, that's going to be landing on already saturated ground. It will be causing some problems, but what you can't see is just tucked in behind it, on its back edge of this rain, it's coming up against some cold air. So we are seeing some snow falling over the higher ground of Wales and across the Pennines. So clear skies for a time across the northwest of England, and then again we've also got snow flurries, not quite showing us snow just on the graphic just yet, but away from coastal areas further inland we are seeing snow across eastern Scotland. So bits and pieces of everything this morning. It's a wintry scene across northern and eastern areas of Scotland, brighter out to the southwest, brighter too across northwestern areas of England, and then there is that area of rain still causing problems across parts of Wales and central areas. We can see that in more detail now if we take our tour around the country. There's that snow just feeding in off bitterly cold winds off the North Sea. I think they will be pushing their way southwards as we move through today as well. So across East Anglia, very, very cold today. Only expecting to see highs of around 5 degrees in Norwich today. But I think anywhere from London across the M4 corridor, anywhere south of that, temperatures should be holding their own. We could even see them reaching double figures in Southampton today. But just above that again, that's where we see that wet weather. But again, it could well be falling as sleet and snow over the higher ground of Wales and across the Pennines. So then you'll see a big change in the temperatures today. They are falling only at around 2 to 4 degrees across Scotland, and where we see that snow across eastern Scotland, it is going to feel very raw. But across the south, as I said, temperatures could well be getting into double figures. Make the most of it. It'll get cold later on. Here's your summary. For constantly updated weather information 24 hours a day, visit gm.tv/weather.
Good morning to you. It's 6:29. It's Friday the 3rd of January.
This is the news hour here on GMTV. This is what we've got coming up. Well, we're going to hear from the community in Birmingham, still stunned, of course, by the shooting dead of 2 of their teenagers.
And we're going to have to get used to those floods, I think. Experts warn they could last until March.
Top story this morning. Detectives investigating the gruesome double murder of 2 women in North London have arrested their chief suspect. Following a public appeal for help, 51-year-old Anthony John Hardy was detained near London's Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital last night. Well, Deborah Bain is outside the hospital this morning for us. Deborah, good morning. Can you tell us what happened? How was he arrested in the end?
Good morning, Andrew. Well, it was Anthony Hardy's suffering from diabetes that brought him to Great Ormond Street Hospital. He was searching for medication. A team of specialist officers arrested him after a tip-off from staff here or a member of the public.
I wonder what the police will do with him now. What are they going to? How are they going to treat him?
Well, we understand that he's being held at a police station in North London. Forensic teams are still searching his flat in Camden, which is in North London. It's where the torso, where one of the women was found. Other body parts wrapped in black bin liners were found in the street nearby.
And police have concerns for a 3rd woman, we understand. Nobody's seen her for a while.
That's right. I mean, we know what we know about the 2 victims, the 2 women whose body parts were found wrapped in black bin liners, is that they're both white, they're in their 30s, one is in her 20s or in her late teens. But police said all day yesterday that they were very keen to talk to a woman called Kelly Ann Nichols. She's 24, she's from Falkirk in Scotland. She was last seen with Anthony Hardy on Camden High Street, outside a shop on Camden High Street. The good news, though, is that there have been 2 sightings since then, the last of those just yesterday. Police still want her to come forward. They still want to hear from her. They want her to help them with their investigation. Back to you.
Thank you very much indeed. That's Kelly Ann Nichols, a 24-year-old from Falkirk that everyone's looking for. OK.
We're going to get you up to date with this morning's other news stories now. Jackie Cabler's at the news desk. Morning, Jackie.
Good morning, Kate. Thank you. Good morning. Community leaders in Birmingham are urging people to come forward with information this morning after 2 teenage girls were shot and killed at a party. 2 other girls are still in hospital with gunshot injuries. Our correspondent Alan Fisher joins me now from the scene of the killings. Alan, good morning to you. Have there been any developments in the murder hunt?
Well, it's just over 26 hours since the double shooting took place in the alley that you can see behind me. The police have been on scene since they were called in the early hours of yesterday morning. Overnight, a number of armed police have been on the streets of Birmingham. This is a response by the West Midlands Police to show that they're in charge of the situation, to try and reassure the local community. Obviously, people are deeply concerned about what happened here. Police have been on the scene with ballistics and forensic experts throughout the day yesterday, carrying out fingertip searches, not just of the area but also of a car that was found abandoned nearby with a number of bullet holes in it, and those teams will be back here later today. The row of shops, there's about 20 of them here, they've all been closed yesterday and it's unlikely that they'll be allowed to reopen today. We're expecting the police to give us some sort of idea of what they're likely to do within the next hour or so, but they say that the answer to this crime lies in the local community, that the people who were at the party and the people who live nearby may well know who was responsible. They understand that because it's gun crime that's involved, many people may be frightened about coming forward, but they say this was such a horrendous crime, such an appalling attack on 2 young innocent women who died and 2 women who are now in hospital, that the local community must come forward and help them catch the killers.
Alan Fisher, thank you very much. Experts are warning there could be severe flooding until March. The Environment Agency says saturated ground and the high water table may mean months of misery for homeowners. 132 flood warnings are still in place around the country this morning. 2 prison officers have been hurt by inmates during a standoff at a maximum security jail in Scotland. HM Shotts Prison in Lanarkshire houses 500 long-term prisoners. Police, fire crews and ambulances are still at the scene this morning. Ellie Barker reports.
The 2 officers were hurt when fighting broke out between 2 sections of inmates at the maximum security jail. Home to around 500 prisoners, it's believed at least 50 were involved in the disturbance, which began at around 8 o'clock last night. The Scottish Prison Service say it's too early to know just why the protest began. This prison is no stranger to trouble. Just a few months ago, there were other disturbances here. The Scottish Prison Service were unavailable for interview, but they say this morning this jail remains secure. Ellie Barker, GMTV News, Lanarkshire.
A Turkish barman who had a relationship with a teenage girl from Wrexham could be sent to prison for 7 years. Mehmet Osak has been charged with rape after police found him with Rachel Lloyd. The 14-year-old sparked a manhunt when she ran away from home and later phoned her family to say she'd married the barman and wouldn't be coming back. New doctors and nurses who join the NHS will have to take an HIV test, the government has announced. It comes on top of the current tests for hepatitis B and C for workers exposed to a high risk of injury, such as surgeons. The HIV virus, which can lead to full-blown AIDS, is transmitted through blood. Finally, it can be pretty frustrating missing out on last orders at your local pub. Well, one man from Oxfordshire managed to express his annoyance rather effectively. Furious Robert Tyrrell demolished his own pub with a 10-ton digger after staff refused to serve him a drink because they wanted to close up. It'll cost £50,000 to rebuild the historic North Star, a Grade 2 listed building. One hangover that won't be solved with an aspirin. Incredible. It's 6:35. I'll be back in half an hour. Back now to Andrew and Kate.
Thanks very much indeed, Jackie.
You only bought it last month.
There's something a little confusing going on there,
It's just possible there might be more to that story than we know.
Yeah, I think you might be right. Coming up on the News Hour this morning, as the hunt goes on for the gunman who killed 2 teenage girls in Birmingham, we're going to be talking to the local MP and an anti-guns campaigner about just how to tackle the growing problem of guns on our streets.
And we're live to Hampshire for the latest on the floods this morning. It's not good news, I'm afraid. As we were hearing in the news, environmental experts are warning the floods could last for another 3 months. All the latest in around 10 minutes. But now for the news, the travel and that all-important weather in your area.
Good morning from the Granada News Centre. North Wales Coast Guards have called off their search for a man who's believed to have fallen from a ferry into the Irish Sea. The man was reported missing from the Stena Explorer 22 miles before it reached Holyhead late last night. A rescue helicopter and a lifeboat have scoured the area, but emergency services say the man's hopes of survival look slim because of the atrocious weather. Detectives hunting the killer of an Oldham taxi driver at the weekend say both the victim's family and the police have been helped by the community's response to the death. 42-year-old Israr Hussain died after he was stabbed in the neck outside the Red Line public house in Leeds after an argument with a passenger. His attacker walked away towards nearby Benyon Street in the early hours of Saturday morning.
The community have rallied round the family to a huge extent, to the extent that the support has come from far wider than Greater Manchester. It's certainly come from across the nation and further afield. And that support has helped the family to help me in the investigation, in finding out the information that I need to know about Mr. Hussain and the links to the offender that we may be able to develop in the course of time.
A Salford teenager who disappeared after celebrating New Year's Eve in Manchester city centre has turned up safe and well. 17-year-old Rachel Williams, who has learning difficulties, was last seen outside Jumping Jack's nightclub in the early hours of New Year's Day. Following an appeal from her family, police say she's now made contact with them. Concern grew after fears that Rachel's hearing aid may have run out of batteries because of the time she spent away from home. An explorer from Bolton says he's determined to cross the Antarctic with a kite-powered buggy after being forced to end the expedition due to windless conditions. 59-year-old Brian Cunningham and his friend hope to complete the 650-mile journey in just 10 days, but lack of wind forced the pair to abandon the trip. They're convinced the concept will work and aim to revolutionise polar travel in the near future. Time now for a look at the region's roads this morning. In Greater Manchester, there's diversions on Broadway because of a fire on Salford Quays. In Cheshire, there's roadworks continuing on the Thelwell Viaduct between junctions 20 and 21, causing rush hour delays. The A677 Preston New Road in Lancashire has some roadworks in place today, and we've had no reports of any problems on Merseyside this morning. I'll be back with some more news at 7:05. Finally, the region's weather.
The local weather with Bounce tumble dryer sheets.
A cold day today with a wet start and some snow across hilly areas. A little bit brighter this afternoon, but it's still going to feel very cold. Temperatures of just 4 degrees Celsius.
Good morning to you, watching the News Hour on GMTV at 6:39. It's Friday the 3rd of January. Coming up, we have all the latest on the floods across the country, and we're off to New York, where claims that a second clone baby is about to be born have been greeted with scepticism.
The front pages this morning, I'm going to start with the pink one. Arab leaders may ask Saddam to step down. This is very interesting. It says that Saudi Arabia is pressing Washington to allow the Arabs a last opportunity for a diplomatic breakthrough after January the 27th. And, of course, the UN inspectors going back to the Security Council. It's a major story in the Financial Times this morning. Insurers refusing to cover al-Qaeda attacks, you know, the biological, dirty nuclear attacks, chemical attacks. They're just refusing to cover it on regular household renewal policies. That's the Norwich Union doing that, says The Independent. And the Times this morning, 5 years for gun toting as girls die in a hail of bullets. Possible amendment to the criminal justice bill by David Blunkett. Not in a response to the shootings in Birmingham, but very pertinent this time. It's in response to what the police have been saying to do for the last 2 months.
We're going to be talking a bit more about that story in just a moment. Just to give you a quick look at the front pages of the tabloids now. Most of them cover this case on the front, the arrest of Anthony Hardy. Ripper case, suspect is held, says the Daily Mail. Daily Mirror has captured on the front page The Sun, Ripper arrest, and on the Daily Express there's a slightly different story across there. It's a possible disappearance of the traditional red postbox. Royal Mail is losing £1.5 million a day, and they're also seeking to raise stamp prices as well in April by a penny. But of course there's immediately a campaign to try and hold on to these, not just because they're part of our countryside and the way our country looks, but also because of course they mean that people in rural areas get a proper postal service. So we'll see how that one develops. Now, let's return to that story about the death of 2 teenage girls in a hail of bullets at a New Year party in Birmingham. It's certainly highlighted what many fear is a growing culture of gun use. Now, gunmen are getting younger, as are their victims, it seems, with weapons available for less than the price of a pair of designer trainers. Unbelievable. Joining me now from Birmingham is local MP Khalid Mahmood. Good morning to you, Khalid. I mean, these are shocking events to me, to be honest with you, and as it was yesterday's and as were the figures. Do they shock you and your experience?
I think immensely shocking, not just to me, but the whole of the community. At the start of the new year, you get this horrendous criminal activity that's been going on, and I think it's absolutely devastated the whole of the community.
Yeah, very shocking, very surprising. I mean, looking at some of these latest figures, gun crime in the West Midlands rose by 49% over the last 2 years. Why do you think we're seeing such an increase in the problem?
Well, largely because there has been a development of a gun culture, but it's also related to drugs as well, which is one of the biggest problems that we've been having around the area. We've been trying to deal with that, but I think there's also an import of guns which have been coming over from Northern Ireland, from both sides, where there's been exchange of weapons for drugs. And that's another big issue. That's one of the reasons why there's an issue before of replica guns. That's, I think, not the issue here. These people here were using machine guns, and this is the issue that these people have been able to get hold of access to these weapons with a great amount of ease. And it's largely due to the exchange of the drugs for guns predominantly.
What needs to be done then?
Well, we're working with the police. The police have set up a new command unit, which we're going to be looking at on Monday morning. We've got a meeting with them try and solve that. The police are looking to work with the community areas here. But the main thing is that the community needs to take responsibility for this. The meetings that we've had over since yesterday morning with the community is that they want to start to move with it. We need to get the response from the community to be able to start to get these culprits back where they belong, in behind bars, and to be able to address the issue.
When you say take responsibility for this, what do you mean? You basically mean if they know someone's carrying a gun, they have to report them to police. They have to shop them. Is that what you're saying?
They will have to, because this is a too high a price to pay that we're paying at the moment, and people have to start to say, now, enough is enough, and we're going to get out and do something and put this community back to rights.
Is there, do you think, a change in the general culture? I mean, I think if I was at school and someone was carrying a gun, I'd have been both flabbergasted, terrified, and I think everyone would have been shocked. Clearly, that is not going to be the case among the groups of people, teenage people that are carrying guns there. I mean, does there need to be a whole change in the way it's viewed?
No, I think there are a lot of people. I think there are a lot of people with the meetings that I had with some of the parents yesterday. There are a lot of young people that are very frightened by this, and one of the reasons why they haven't been coming forward is because they are petrified by these people carrying guns. And I think now some of the older people are starting to say, look, well, this is enough. We're going to start to work with our young people to try and protect them from what's going on, trying to work with the local authorities, to work with the police, and trying to move forward with this and trying to put a stop to this.
OK, well, I think that's what we all home. Kelly Mahmood, thanks very much for speaking to us. I know that we're going to speak to you a little bit later in the programme as well. I think we'd like to hear your comments at home on this one too. Do give us a call or text us if you have any views about what should be done and the way to approach this. Maybe we can get some views now. We're going to speak, I think, now to Daniel Bowen, who's a local minister in Birmingham. Daniel, good morning to you. I know your church is right across the street from where these shootings happened. Pretty shocking, I would imagine, for you.
Yes, very shocking. I mean, everybody's very, very sad, very disturbed about what's happened.
What have people been saying to you?
Well, they were very upset, very shocked. I wouldn't like people to think that we live in an area where people live in fear all the time, that this violence is a very, very small minority. There are a lot of good people in this community, a lot of people with big hearts that actually work together, live together, and for this tragic thing to happen has really shocked them.
It is, and maybe that's, I don't know if that makes things seem more confusing or less confusing, the fact that you're saying this isn't a bad neighbourhood in the traditional sense of it. There are lots of good people who live there, and yet still 2 teenage girls are dead. It seems to make it even harder to unravel the problem, doesn't it?
It does in a way. I mean, we know that there is this drug culture. We know that there are drugs about. We know that there is a violent minority, but it is a very small minority. And I would echo the sentiment said earlier. The community has now to get together, have to work together to sort this out. They have to help the police, and we have to get to the bottom of it.
Do you think there need to be changes in the law? There are discussions going on anyway about a change in the criminal justice bill. I mean, does there need to be some kind of government approach to trying to tackle guns on the streets?
I think there has to be something done, yes. What has to be done, I don't know. I certainly worry about the fear that some of the young people have who know what goes on, this fear of actually speaking out against it, yes.
I mean, is that something that you feel that you could help with? Because I suppose, I know that you've been talking to lots of people in the community that are very upset, but you need to get to, I suppose, the people that know people who are carrying guns, who are going to be young people, who are going to be people who are scared of maybe people in authority. What can be done, do you think, to make them feel they can relate to those in authority and confide in them?
We have to get out to the young people, we have to get out into the community. Those of us who are leaders of the community have to be out there and be with them. One of the I suppose, good things about my ministry here is that I actually live in the parish, I walk around the parish, I'm not frightened of guns, and I like to think that the people around me aren't either. But we've got to be there for people and give them the confidence to speak out.
Well, Daniel Bowen, thanks for being with us this morning and for giving us your view on the situation. Hopefully something can happen soon to make the streets a lot safer place. Thanks very much for speaking to us this morning.
Just gone 7:15 this Friday morning. You're watching the news out here on GMTV. These are the other headlines this morning. Police are questioning a man wanted in connection with the gruesome murders of 2 women in North London. There are growing concerns for the safety of a 3rd woman.
2 prison officers have been hurt by inmates during a standoff at a maximum security jail in Scotland.
And new doctors and nurses who join the NHS will have to take an HIV test as well as tests for hepatitis B and C. Now, it's dry this morning, thank goodness, bringing some respite to areas affected by flooding. But the bad news is that the misery could continue until the end of March. The Environment Agency is warning that saturated ground and the high water table mean the problems may have only just started. Well, Richard Gaisford is in Shipton Bellinger in Hampshire, where dozens of homes have been evacuated. Well, it seems like a few days in a row, Richard, we've seen you knee-deep in water. It looks pretty bad again.
Yeah, it's certainly not dry in this particular part of Hampshire, Andrew. Everyone had hoped the water level here was going to fall dramatically overnight, and that just hasn't happened. It has dropped an inch or so, but not enough to really save people's homes here, because there's a lot of places underwater, and it's water that's coming off the fields. The River Bourne just is normally a little stream which goes down in a channel down the side of the high street here. Sometimes there's no water in it at all, so where all this water's come from, no one's quite sure, but it has meant really a night of misery for people who live here. The unfortunate driver of this car found himself in the river instead of on the road. Sometimes here in Hampshire, it's difficult to tell the difference. Well, this really illustrates the problem here. The fields are absolutely flooded. There's nowhere else for the water to go but into the lanes and then into the village. Many homes here in Shipton Bellinger have been evacuated, but the owner of this 400-year-old cottage, which featured in the Doomsday Book, is staying put, trying to pump as much water as possible out of his historic house.
This is the worst by far. We were flooded 2 years ago, which we thought was the worst then, obviously. But it's come back with a vengeance.
Well, it is difficult to believe that this raging river is normally the quiet little high street of a quaint English village. The village's flood warden is affected like his neighbours. It was the speed of the rising water that's left everyone in shock. Well, John Tidy's with me now. John, it was the speed, wasn't it, that caught everyone out here?
Yes, unquestionably. It was the amount of water and the speed at which it came through. No way could that have been predicted.
I mean, it is a raging torrent still. Can you see an end to it?
No, I can't. Not for a long time anyway. I mean, we need a long period of dry weather, and then it would need a lot more work to be done, I think, lower down the river to help the water get away.
We hear the Environment Agency today saying it could be the spring before this problem's sorted out. I mean, that's a big worry for people who live here, I should imagine.
Yes, it is. It's a great concern to all of us that we're going to be here for so long, you know, suffering from this amount of water.
Now, the big question last night, speaking to everyone here, could something have been done about it beforehand? You had floods in 2000. It's worse this time around, we know that, but could something be done?
It's difficult to say what. I think there's two aspects of it. One is flood prevention, and the other one is flood protection. I think, in a sense, we've got to look long and hard at the question of flood prevention. And flood protection, we're still doing it with sandbags, which we've been doing for a long time, the ubiquitous sandbag.
Something needs to change, John. Thank you very much indeed. Well, you can see here, look at this. This is the high street. It is flooding right the way through. It's really not a pretty picture in what should be a wonderful part of the country.
Richard, thank you very much indeed for that, and all the very best to all of those people. You can find out more on protecting your home against flooding on our website, which is GM.TV.
It's 6:51. Now, there's growing scepticism this morning over claims made by an American cult, the Raelian scientists, that they've made the world's first human clone. The sect promised to carry out DNA tests on baby Eve, as she's been called, born last week, to prove she's genuine. But now the president of CloneAid, Dr. Brigitte Boisselier, says they've still not been done. Well, Rachel Harrison has met Dr. Boisselier, and she's in New York for us this morning. Good morning, Rachel. So what's the controversies surrounding these DNA tests? Why have they not been done?
Yes, good morning, Kate. Well, the simple answer is the family are very reluctant. Dr. Boisselier, as you said on Sunday when she spoke to me that she would prove to the world next Tuesday that this baby was the first human cloned baby. However, she said the tests still haven't taken place purely because the family are now concerned that their identity may be revealed. They say that they are worried that the independent expert who would visit them may release their name, certainly where they're living here in the US, and that's why they haven't done it. It's their reluctance that has stopped the test being taken place.
Yeah, the problem is, though, is that how can we be sure the claims, or anyone be sure the claims are true without that kind of genetic proof?
well, you can't. And the sceptics have said all along that they don't think this lady is telling the truth. And you would have thought that the family would have been aware of the publicity and the controversy surrounding going through this sort of a process. So it doesn't all really ring true. The only thing that we have to remember is that she said this isn't the only baby. Eve isn't the only cloned baby to exist. There's a second baby that's due to be born any time now, and there are 3 others that are due to be born within the next 3 to 8 weeks. So it could be that one of those families would be willing to take part in the independent test, but it's looking incredibly unlikely now, I think.
OK, Rachel, I think this one's going to run and run, so I'm sure we'll talk about this one again. Should we talk about some showbiz now, though, and award ceremonies? There always seems to be one going on somewhere or another, isn't there? What's this latest one about?
Well, it's the American Music Awards, which are kind of the pop version of the Grammys here, and they take place a little bit later on January the 13th here. But instead of people talking about who's going to win the awards, and bear in mind people like Elton John, Justin Timberlake, the girl who won American Idol, Eminem, they're all going to be there, but people aren't talking about who's going to win. They're talking about the goodie bags. Now, I'm astounded by this. These goodie bags are like no other. They're better and bigger than the ones that you get at the Oscars. £30,000 worth of freebies will be contained in these goodie bags, and they've got things like a trip to Orlando, a whitewater rafting trip in Chile, and things like a retro popcorn maker and a retro hot dog maker, which, to be quite honest, 1, would Elton John want any of those things, and 2, if he did, wouldn't he go and buy them himself? So I'm quite concerned about this, really.
Oh, I'd go and hang around outside, Rachel, and see if you can get one.
See if I can get them.
Over to you, yeah. Now, listen, I've been looking through this list of New York's hottest bachelorettes and hot babes. I'm very shocked to see you're not down there.
I know I've got such strong competition, though, but you're right. There's a well-known fact here, which I didn't know, and maybe I'd have thought twice about coming here when I found out, but there are more eligible women here than there are men, and there basically aren't enough eligible men to go around. And they've done a top list of the 3, well, most eligible bachelorettes. They've done a whole list, actually, but the ones that top them are Mariah Carey, because, of course, she's back on track now with not only her singing career, she's worth, I think she's got about $30 million in the bank, and she's also pretty stunning. She's looking pretty good at the moment. So Mariah Carey's there. Also is Gwyneth Paltrow. Of course, she was born in New York and has a flat here and is often staying in the city. She's one of Hollywood's toppest babes, absolutely stunning. But there's a name you haven't heard for a while, which is Monica Lewinsky. She's also there. She still hasn't found a man, but is still working here in the Big Apple. And then there's me. And I think I've got too much competition to beat with them, to be honest.
You've got that killer English accent, though. When I was in New York, I discovered they quite like that. It's always a good one. I should hang on to that one, Rachel. You'll be there next year, I'm convinced of it. Good to speak to you.
So. And you, take care.
You should try that accent in Wichita, Kansas.
Did it go down a storm?
Yeah, fantastic. Very,
I found myself starting to
useful.
talk like Mary Poppins, though, by the end of it.
Right, Julie Garraway and I will be back in a few minutes. Mariah Carey, Monica Lewinsky. You'd be taking on a lot, wouldn't you? Let's face it, you'd be taking on a lot.
There'd be some issues.
Right, we've got to go, although we're not going.
No, we're coming back. That's it for News Hour. We're back with GMTV Today.